Be careful.
It's a rare, unfiltered glimpse into the Prime Minister's relationship with U.S. President Donald Trump. Caught on a hot mic between summit sessions, Mark Carney appearing to try to reassure Donald Trump that Canada's Chinese electric vehicle deal struck earlier this year will not flood the North American market. Trump previously threatened tariffs over the agreement, but Carney's appeal seemingly landed.
I thought you'd actually like it.
Carney thought it was a private conversation, but one live microphone caught every word. As he leaned toward Trump and explained a major deal, the room stayed quiet while a surprising moment unfolded right in front of world leaders. On June 2026, at the G7 Leaders Summit in Evian-les-Bains, France, cameras captured something that no diplomatic communications team had planned for. As world leaders milled around the table ahead of a working lunch on Middle East stability, Prime Minister Mark Carney leaned over toward Donald Trump and began talking. A live microphone picked up what happened next. One phrase came through clearly in the audio. 14 days before the CUSMA review deadline, the Canadian Prime Minister was sitting at a G7 table in the French Alps, explaining Canada's Chinese EV trade deal to the President of the United States. Less than 3% of our market, Carney was heard saying in the hot microphone moment, a likely reference to Chinese-made EVs. That number 3% is the specific quantification Carney chose to characterize Canada's Chinese EV import deal to Trump in a conversation that was not scheduled, had not been planned as a bilateral trade discussion, and became the most watched clip to emerge from the first full day of the Kananaskis Summit's successor event in France. The China EV deal Carney was describing has a specific documented history. During Carney's visit to China in January 2026, one of the most geopolitically significant diplomatic trips a Canadian Prime Minister had undertaken in years, Canada announced an arrangement that would reduce its tariff rate on Chinese electric vehicles from 100% to 6.1%, allowing a defined number of those vehicles into the Canadian market. In exchange, China agreed to lower tariffs on key Canadian agricultural and seafood exports, most notably slashing the levies on Canadian canola seed. Canada received agricultural market access in China. China received a defined, limited entry point for its EV manufacturers into the Canadian market. The United States, by contrast, continues to apply tariffs on Chinese EVs that effectively prohibit their commercial sale in American showrooms. Though the number of vehicles does represent 3% of the Canadian auto market, the move was panned by some in the industry. 3% of Canada's automotive market is approximately 49,000 vehicles annually, a number that Canadian industry representatives described as commercially significant, particularly given that Chinese EV manufacturers, including BYD, produce vehicles at price points that North American manufacturers currently cannot match. The concern from Canadian automotive sector advocates is that even a limited volume of Chinese EVs entering Canada at dramatically lower price points than domestically produced alternatives creates competitive pressure that ripples through consumer expectations and pricing across a broader segment of the market. The context surrounding the conversation at the working lunch table matters for understanding why Carney chose this particular moment and this particular quantification. Carney told reporters on Sunday in Ireland that the principal trade discussions with the United States would be held through Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc, and that he did not intend to raise trade issues directly with Trump at the summit. While the trade talk happened on the margins of the G7 summit, that was not the original plan, according to Carney. The hot mic exchange was not a prearranged bilateral discussion. It was Carney taking an unplanned proximate opportunity, standing next to Trump ahead of a working session on a different topic to proactively explain a Canadian policy decision that Washington has concerns about. Canada-US Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc said what Carney told Trump was nothing new. This shouldn't surprise anybody that the Prime Minister took this opportunity to discuss what is a well-known circumstance, he told reporters at the summit. LeBlanc's framing positions the hot mic exchange not as a revelation or a diplomatic miscalculation, but as Carney reinforcing an already communicated Canadian position directly to the American president at an unplanned, convenient moment. Whether that framing fully describes what Trump understood from the exchange is a different question, one that the conversation's brevity and the audio's partial capture make impossible to answer definitively from the public record. The timing sits inside a specific and pressured 15-day window, July 1st is the CUSMA review deadline. Canada has formally requested a 16-year renewal. The United States has not committed to an extension. Trump told Oval Office reporters on June 10th that he is not looking to renew CUSMA, specifically citing trade deficits and claiming the United States doesn't need Canadian cars, lumber, or energy. 6 days later, his Canadian counterpart is at a G7 table in France, explaining that the Chinese EVs Canada allowed into its market represent less than 3% of total Canadian auto sales, an argument designed to diminish the scale of the policy decision that Washington views as a sign of Canada's insufficient alignment with American China strategy. The broader G7 day on June 16th contained other Canadian announcements that collectively describe the full scope of Carney's diplomatic activity at the summit. Canada announced additional sanctions on Russia. Canada and Italy entered formal talks on a potential purchase of Leonardo M346 advanced jet trainer aircraft. It is not yet clear how many jets Canada is looking to acquire, but the announcement confirmed Canadian interest in European military aviation beyond the Saab, Gripen, and GlobalEye programs already in negotiation. Carney held bilateral meetings with the leaders of the United Arab Emirates, India, South Korea, and Italy on the same day as the hot mic exchange with Trump. 5 bilateral meetings in a single summit day is the pace of a government building relationships across multiple continents simultaneously. The diplomatic execution of the diversification strategy Carney announced in October 2025 and articulated in Dublin 2 days before arriving in France. The hot mic exchange itself lasted seconds. The policy decision it referenced 49,000 Chinese EVs entering Canada annually in exchange for Chinese tariff reductions on Canadian canola and seafood was negotiated over months. The CUSMA deadline it was proximate to is 15 days away. And the President Carney was explaining it to had just told the Oval Office press pool 6 days earlier that he sees no reason to renew the trade agreement governing $1.6 trillion in annual North American commerce. Less than 3% of our market is what Carney chose to say. The microphone heard it, the camera caught Trump's reaction, and the July 1st clock did not stop. The M346 jet trainer announcement with Italy on the same day as the hot mic exchange is the detail that contextualizes the full strategic picture Carney is assembling at this summit. Canada is simultaneously negotiating a Chinese EV deal that Washington opposes, purchasing Swedish surveillance aircraft, exploring a mixed fighter fleet that reduces F-35 dependence, entering talks on Italian jet trainers, and building bilateral frameworks with India, South Korea, and the UAE, all in a 48-hour window at a G7 summit where the CUSMA deadline is 14 days away. The hot mic exchange is not the story of a prime minister making a slip at a summit table. It is a story of a prime minister who decided that the most direct way to handle Trump's concern about Chinese EVs was to walk up to him, lean in, and say the number out loud before the formal sessions began. 3%, 14 days before July 1st, at a table surrounded by the leaders of every G7 economy. The microphone caught 30 seconds of a conversation that reflects a year and a half of Canada building the leverage, the relationships, and the alternatives that make that kind of direct, unhurried explanation possible.